What was it I've done? Oh, what was it I'm supposed to have done? So,
the offences that I've arrested you on suspicion of being involved in were blackmail, causing or inciting a child to engage in sexual activity, possessing indecent images of children.
Sounds like the rap sheet from hell.
Distributing indecent images of children, and causing GBH injuries to a person.
This case involves Matthew Falder, a sadistic pedophile from the UK. Falder lived a double life, a graduate of Cambridge University and a Birmingham University researcher during the day, and a sexual predator at night. He was charged with committing heinous crimes, including blackmailing a string of vulnerable victims, encouraging the rape of a 4-year-old, possessing a pedophile manual, and sharing explicit and harmful content online. Matthew Alexander Falder, born on the 24th of October 1988, grew up in an upper middle class family in Knutsford Cheshire. He attended King's School, where it was reported that he excelled. After school he attended Clare College of the University of Cambridge, specialising in seismic oceanography and earning master's and doctoral degree in geophysics. At the time of his arrest, he was working as a postgraduate researcher and lecturer in geophysics at the University of Birmingham. Falder was well liked in his peer group and was described as being extroverted, funny and larger than life. Falder was, on the surface, a Cambridge-educated academic with a good job, family and friends. His Twitter feed revealed a love of dinosaurs, baking, table tennis and 3D printing, featuring selfies, crossword puzzles and innocent questions about how to put nice quality videos online. During Falder's nearly decade-long spree of offences, his multiple victims included boys, girls, men and women, never physically meeting any of them. The offences in his record stretch as far back as 2007, when he secretly filmed his university housemate in their shared bathroom. It should be noted that this incident is not included in his record. The officials consider 2009 to be the start of his 8 years of offending. Falder committed a wide variety of gruesome and unspeakable acts, which can be categorized into 3 groups for easier understanding: peeping Tom category, the dark web category, and the countryside category. These categories are organized by the nature of the offences, without concern for timeline, as it does not offer any significant benefit. The peeping Tom category. The peeping Tom category is the least severe of his offences, which involved Falder setting up a hidden camera in publicly accessible toilets and at his parents' home, catching and suspecting victims on film, then blackmailing them and trading the images online with other depraved individuals.
As a geophysicist, Dr. Falder used cameras for field work, sometimes unintentionally filming himself. He made the same mistake installing hidden cameras to spy on his victims.
The dark web category, using his evil mind and 666 devil accounts on encrypted dark web forums, he coerced, controlled and ultimately devastated his victims. He was a member of several virtual communities of abusers on the dark web, distributing images on the so-called hardcore websites where images of violent sexual and physical abuse are shared, and where he had a VIP membership level called Rapist. He used a series of encrypted email addresses and sophisticated Tor softwares which help users hide their identity by encrypting connections and bouncing it around global volunteers to make it much harder for the authorities to trace and allow users to access the hidden dark web. He also used email accounts based in Russia, knowing it would be much harder for British authorities to investigate him. The material was shared with hundreds of thousands of other pedophiles on the secret forum. His usage of these sites included posting suggestion tips, images and videos. On one forum called 100 Things We Want to See at Least Once, he suggested a young girl being used as a dartboard, production of a video depicting a child's bones being slowly and deliberately broken, and the abuse of a paralyzed child. He also shared an instructional video on how to sexually abuse children, as well as guidance on how to give youngsters sweets which were soaked in urine or semen. He also posted a video of a man repeatedly throwing a young child who couldn't swim into a pool, with the child submerged for several seconds each time, and a 3-minute-long video of a woman kicking and then beating a 4-year-old boy with a stick. In further posts, he wrote about arranging to meet the blackmailed victim for sex in a remote location, and told how he would make the person tie themselves to a tree, lock the binding, and throw away the key to ensure a slow and painful death. Falder also suggested a sick game in which a curling iron would be inserted into a woman's private part and could only be turned off if she answered the question correctly. In one post, He described what he had made his victim do. They have had a few push pins into themselves, sometimes to attach signs, and had one victim stand on them in bare feet. Not only this, but the suspect also offered advice to other pedophiles on how to evade capture, suggesting they avoid using money, but instead use voucher to get kids to trust you. And posts included captions as, "I'm glad you all enjoying her suffering, and I love blackmail, especially forcing someone I met online to do things they don't want to, for amusement." Crown prosecutor described Falder as highly manipulative. He clearly enjoyed humiliating his victims, and the impact of his offending, which carried on over several years, has been significant. The last category is the Gumtree site. On the Gumtree app, Falder approached over 200 potential victims, people posting that they need babysitting work or dog walking, that they need money or needed a home. By masquerading as a depressed female artist, he went by the names Liz, Jess, and Shona to lure victims into talking to him, using at least 30 different email addresses encrypted via a service which originated in Russia. He promised hundreds, sometimes thousands of pounds, as much as £4,000, which he never paid, for naked or potentially clothed images of people, claiming it was part of his therapy. He also targeted victims on pro-anorexia websites to get what he wanted. Falder posed as a teenage girl on these websites to obtain their trust. After building a report with these images, he obtained their personal information and immediately moved the conversation away from Gumtree servers to email. His victims would then be blackmailed into sending increasingly horrific images, with Falder threatening to send them to friends and relatives unless they post in ever more depraved and humiliating ways. One 15-year-old sent more than 200 pictures, fearing he would send them to her mother. If she did not comply, the 15-year-old is the only victim to testify against him. 3 of his victims attempted suicide when one of them pleaded for the abuse to end, or else they would kill themselves. Falder replied that the images he already had on them would be circulated on the internet anyway. Falder maintained he could not be caught and said he did not care if the victims lived or died. Gumtree spokeswoman stated, "Gumtree simply does not tolerate the exploitation of users or illegal misuse of our platform. Our dedicated safety team has lent its full support and cooperation to the NCA in their investigation of this case, which has been active for several years. Gumtree takes the safety of its users extremely seriously, and we are committed to making the site as safe as possible." The University of Cambridge said it was actively pursuing stripping Falder of his academic qualification.
One of the country's most prolific sex offenders has admitted to using fake IDs to coerce more than 50 people into performing sex acts online, often threatening them with blackmail. Dr. Matthew Falder, an eminent scientist at the University of Birmingham, pleaded guilty to more than 130 sex offences against boys, girls, men and women.
Well, Dr. Matthew Falder, Fiona, lived and worked here in Birmingham. In 2010, he began a secret life online. He pretended to be a female artist, and by doing that, he manipulated his victims into sending him naked pictures of themselves.
Falder's arrest took the involvement of several investigative agencies and task forces from different countries, including US, UK, Australia and other European countries, through a 4-year period. In April 2015, the NCA discovered someone posting on the hardcore website under the name 666 Devil, used a picture of a young girl as his icon on the forum, claiming she was his daughter. He said he planned to torture her during what he dubbed Hell Week, and requested ideas from members about what he could do to her. Officers scrambled to identify the girl in the profile image, accessing the user's webmail account to find out who she was and protect her. A special task force involving the NCA, GCHQ, Homeland Security in the US, the Australian Federal Police, and Europol, as well as law enforcement in other European countries, accumulating up to 100 investigators. The special task force was set up specially to enhance evidence gathering against the suspect. Work first began in the United States in 2013 as the FBI worked to expose users of the dark web pedophilia sites. Specialists built their own website on the server, which hosted the offending sites, to track what was being said and done on them. In doing so, they were able to access the so-called hardcore community, who are defined by the sharing of images of rape, murder, sadism, torture, pedophilia, blackmail and humiliation. Hard to the Core, described by the NCA as the world's worst website, was one of such sites. A user known only as In The Garden posted a blackmail picture of a teenage girl. The user was tracked online and found to have also made posts on online marketplace Gumtree. At the same time, many of the suspect's UK victims reported abuse by In The Garden to police, but there was not enough evidence to identify who was behind the username. It proved to be successful, as by the end of March 2017, intelligence linked the person of interest to an address in Birmingham. Falder was identified as the suspect and placed under surveillance for 3 months. He was filmed on the train using his laptop. On 21 June 2017, officers were deployed to capture him, arresting him at his workplace. He was handcuffed in his office at the University of Birmingham. Footage of his arrest show him looking wide-eyed before he asked a police officer, "What is it I am supposed to have done?" And they read out a list of crimes. He said it sounded like a rap sheet from hell.
So what was it I've done? Oh, what was it I'm supposed to have done? So,
the offences that I've arrested you on suspicion of being involved in were blackmail, causing or inciting a child to engage in sexual activity, possessing indecent images of children.
Sounds like the rap sheet from hell.
Distributing indecent images of children, and causing GBH injuries to a person.
2 of Falder's devices were immediately seized, revealing what the NCA called significant evidence. They showed that Falder's offending went back to 2009, when he was a 21-year-old student. Falder was questioned by police over 3 days, during which he largely refused to comment, but did admit to controlling the Evil Mind account.
It's become apparent that obviously that's an email account that's current and you're using at this moment in time. Is that correct?
No comment.
Is there any other email accounts, Matthew, that you're using at the current time?
No comment.
If there are any more email accounts, what are the passwords for them?
No comment.
Have you done that?
No comment.
Have you sent pictures of your blackmail victims to the parents?
No comment.
Of the victim? The grandparents?
No comment.
The workplace?
No comment.
The schools?
No comment.
The images that he provided to you, have you shared them with anybody else?
No comment.
Have you distributed those images to any like-minded individuals on the forums we've discussed previously?
No comment.
Or with any other person?
No comment.
Did you get any sexual gratification of that?
No
from
comment.
That? Or was it a power and control thing, Matthew?
No comment.
Or was it humiliation?
No comment.
You go on to say, and so you know, I know I'm 100% anonymous. How's that, Matthew?
No comment.
His home in Harborne Park Road, Edgbaston, was raided, revealing a chaotic student-like living space. An untidy bedroom with laundry, old pizza boxes, a desktop computer and a laptop were also found, surrounded by drawers of tools and masses of wires into a plug-in plastic container. Officers found information on the devices often had double layers of encryption. Senior investigation officer for the NCA, Matt Stone, said that Falder victim targeting showed organized and advanced manipulation. His primary motivation was for power, control, suffering, and humiliation, believing he had superior intellect and computational abilities. He was confident that he could outwit law enforcement. A total of 484 images were found on Falder's computer. The timeline of the investigation went as follows. August 2013, the FBI begins its investigation into the dark web pedophile sites, identifying a user known as In the Garden and passing files to the NCA. April 2015, the NCA investigates 666 Devil with daughter icon posted on a dark web forum. Officers discovered links between 666 Devil, Evil Mind, and In the Garden while seeking to safeguard the girl. August 2015, suspect's webmail account are accessed, identifying the girl in his profile and further US victims. Task force set up between NCA, GCHQ, Homeland Security, Europol, and Australian Federal Police. March 2017, person of interest was identified at an address in Birmingham. April 2017, Falder was identified as the suspect. June 2017, Falder was arrested while at work at the University of Birmingham. Devices seized and Edgbaston home raided. 3 days of questioning reveals Falder is behind 666 Devil.
The Cambridge University graduate was caught after a long and complex investigation by the National Crime Agency.
His sole objective was the humiliation and degradation of young and vulnerable victims across the UK. He tried to hide in the dark net. Through an international investigation, working with our partners, we've found him and we've caught him.
Throughout June and August of 2017, the Crown Prosecution Service CPS worked with the authorities in the US, eventually deciding to prosecute Falder in the UK. It took over 30 minutes to read out the charges to him at Birmingham Crown Court at the age of 29. On 16 October 2017, originally charged with 188 offences, Falder pleaded guilty to 137 offences against over 50 victims and not guilty to 51 of them. The prosecution accepted the plea, but the 51 offences were ordered to remain on file. At Birmingham Crown Court on 19 February 2018, Judge Philip Parker sentenced Falder to 32 years in prison and ordered him to serve a further 6 years on extended license after his release. Falder will not be eligible for parole until he is at least 50 years old. If the parole board believes that Falder continued to pose a danger to the public or to children, he may have to serve the full 32 years in prison. The judge at the hearing described Falder as an internet highwayman who was warped and sadistic and whose behavior was cunning, persistent, manipulative and cruel. Matthew Falder never showed any emotion during the 3.5 days of sentence, but for the brave few victims who faced their torment during sentencing, it was hard to contain their tears. Hardened investigators were also visibly upset as some of the evidence was read out. Those who suffered extreme abuse and degradation say they are still suffering the impact of what he made them do, but it's hoped that the knowledge he's behind the bar will begin to ease their nightmare. On 16 October 2018, Falder appealed against his sentence. His lawyer Andrew Smith QC told the court the sentence was manifestly excessive. Falder appeared via video link as the court ruled that 25 years was a more appropriate sentence, taking into account his guilty pleas. One of the judges, Lord Justice Holyrood, said the court had considered carefully what total sentence would impose a just and proper punishment for the grave offences. He said that Judge Philip Parker QC had failed to have sufficient regard to totality. He said Falder is now approaching his 30th birthday. He has no previous conviction against him. He grew up in a clearly loving and caring family who are now bewildered by his offending. Falder's wealthy family from Cheshire and his long-term girlfriend are said to be standing by him and have vowed to help rehabilitate him on release from prison.
Now today he pleaded guilty to 137 charges, including encouraging the rape of a minor and posting and distributing indecent images of children online. Now the CPS said in a statement, Matthew Falder is a highly manipulative individual who used his knowledge of computers and the internet to persuade dozens of young people to supply him with degrading images he could distribute online and subsequently use in blackmailing them. The statement goes on to say he clearly enjoyed humiliating his victims and the impact of his offending, which carried on over several years, has been significant.
The list of 137 offences he previously admitted to include 1 count of arranging or facilitating the sexual exploitation of a child, 12 counts of blackmail, 4 counts of conspiracy to blackmail, 2 counts of encouraging or assisting an offence of blackmail, 3 counts of causing or inciting a child to engage in sexual activity, 20 counts of causing or inciting the sexual exploitation of a child, 2 counts of conspiracy to distribute indecent images of a child, 12 counts of distributing indecent images of children, 6 counts of encouraging or assisting the commission of offences of taking, making or distributing indecent images, 1 count of forced labour, 23 counts of fraud by representation, 1 count of intentionally encouraging or assisting an offence of blackmail, 1 count of intentionally encouraging or assisting an offence of child exploitation, 3 counts of intentionally encouraging or assisting an offence of rape, 1 count of intentionally encouraging or assisting an offence of sexual activity with a child family member, 2 counts of conspiracy to make indecent images of a child, 7 counts of making indecent images of a child, 5 counts of malicious communication, 3 counts of participating in the activity of an organized crime group, 2 counts of possession of a pedophile manual, 1 count of possession of extreme pornography, 1 count of possession of indecent images of children, 2 counts of possession of indecent images with a view to their distribution, 1 count of publishing advertisement about distribution of indecent images, 3 counts of publishing an obscene article, 5 counts of sending electronic communication with intent to cause distress or anxiety, 3 counts of conspiracy to send in electronic communication with intent to cause distress. Further 51 offences will lay on file as part of Falder's plea agreement. Exact information and details of what happened to each victim does not exist because most were ashamed and afraid to come forward with statements. Falder's victims were over 50. He targeted them on Gumtree, then immediately moved the conversation away from the website server to email. This meant he could maintain anonymity once he had compromising images of his victims. Falder told them to send him increasingly depraved images, or he would share images with their friends and family. Through police investigation on what the victims shared, a shallow record exists showcasing what happened to 7 of the victims. The first was forced to film herself licking toilet seats, a used tampon, and eating dog food. The second, a male victim who was blackmailed into eating his feces and drinking urine. The third victim was encouraged to rape a 4-year-old boy. Different sources give different stories about the incident. Some suggest that the blackmailed victim was the boy's father. Others suggest it was just a teenager. However, I don't know which is true, or even if the act was committed. The only fact is that Falder was charged with encouragement offense. The fourth victim, and the only one who spoke in length about the incident, is a 15-year-old girl, targeted by Falder after advertising herself as a babysitter on Gumtree. Was bombarded with messages from him daily over 2 months. Speaking anonymously, she said she could not concentrate at school, was scared to go out, and had been too ashamed to tell anyone. His actions had led to the total breakdown of relationships with her family and friends, and left her scared of meeting new people. Her telling of the story will be discussed later on. The fifth victim is a 14-year-old who was blackmailed to strip naked, write racist messages on signs, and take pictures of herself with them. The sixth victim was forced to pose in her school uniform. The seventh victim is a 15-year-old girl in foster care who was told her disabled brother would be taken away from her if she did not keep sending pictures of herself. Falder demanded she pose with a sign that said, "I look after my disabled brother, and now I'm being forced to strip." At least 3 victims of the 50 attempted suicide. Victims described how they will never get over what happened to them. Others describe how they feel dirty, like used goods, since their interaction with Falder. One mother who was duped into sending Falder images of her daughter. "I feel as if I failed my daughter massively by being too trusting. That will never go away, and it is something I have to live with and struggle with the guilt for the rest of my life. I am carrying the weight of what happened on my shoulders daily, and it's been exhausting." I was just advertising on a website for babysitting or dog walking and other casual jobs while I was at school. Liz emailed at first, after a few days, saying that she had work, and asked if she could get a personal email because she didn't like the way the Gumtree website's interface was, which wasn't unusual. I gave her my personal email address, and that's when she put forward the suggestion that she was an artist and wanted to draw life models. She just wanted to know if I was interested in just a few pictures, just for her of me, and that no one would see them, and she would get rid of them once she'd done her drawing. It was all very peaceful, and she said she'd send them to me, so I could see them and see if I was happy with them. The first message made you feel like you were in control. Liz was always saying, "It's up to you, and I understand if you don't want to." She were nice, and she didn't make you think anything was wrong. I sent some pictures, and as soon as she got that, she must have gone on the internet. She sent a threatening email saying that she found me on Facebook. She knew all my friends and where I went to school. She would say, "This is your school, these are your friends, and if you don't do as I say, I'm going to tell everyone. I'm going to send everyone the pictures. I'm going to send them to your house, to your neighbors, to your school." It was almost as soon as she got something she could use. It was messages every day. Every day when I woke up, there would be a message. When I came home from school, there would be a message. When I wasn't actually talking to her, I was worried about when the next message was going to come through. By the time it finished, it felt like it had been a lot longer than it probably had. Throughout everything, it was always from Liz, as a woman. But the worse things got, the more horrific the pictures and images got. It had to be a man. The first picture wasn't anything like the things that were to follow. A woman wouldn't want to see another girl like that. I knew that it was not a woman anymore, and that I was being lied to. It was hard because Liz knew me. There were pictures which were awful, but there was a lot of intrusive questions about my life and how I felt, and my friends at school, and what was happening at home. I didn't tell anyone because I was ashamed. You have heard what the pictures were like. They were awful, and I didn't want any of my friends to think that I had wanted to do that. I don't think people would understand. There was no one there holding a knife to me, saying you have to do this, but it felt like it. It was really hard. I didn't want to go to school then. I didn't want to stay at home, because he knew where I lived. At school I wasn't talking to my friends or thinking about what they were saying. I was just checking my phone to see if there was another message. I couldn't concentrate on anything. I couldn't talk to my family because I felt ashamed of what I was doing. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to go out with my friends because he might be there. I didn't feel safe anywhere. Even if he was standing next to me in the street, I wouldn't recognize him. That's what was scary, not knowing who it was or when they might get bored and send the pictures to all my friends anyway. I think I'll always be scared of meeting new people and scared of sharing. Everyone has things that make them feel more vulnerable, and I'll always be scared of inviting new people into my life. It's still been a long time since what happened with Liz, and I still feel like that about people today. I don't talk to my family anymore at all, because I felt like they wouldn't understand, and they didn't understand what had happened to me. I was ashamed of what I'd done, so I don't really talk to people from school anymore. I left school and tried to make new friends, even though my friends didn't know what was going on. All the relationships broke down. But I've got my day in court. I know who Liz is. I can see him. He's going to get punished for what he did to me, and I want everyone else to have that day. I want them to tell someone, tell a friend, tell your parents, tell someone at work, and tell the police. And even if it takes some time, they can find these people and they will get punished.
I felt like people wouldn't understand that it wasn't my fault how it started and that I didn't want to do it, but I felt that no one would understand because there was no one there sort of holding a knife to me saying you will do this, even though it felt like that. So I didn't tell anyone. I was ashamed of what I'd done. I don't talk to my family anymore. I felt like they wouldn't understand and didn't understand what had happened to me. I've got my day in court and I want everyone else to have that day. I want them to tell someone, to tell a friend, tell your parents, tell someone at work, and to tell the police, because they can, even if it takes a long time, find these people, and they will. They will get punished.
Victims know those images still exist on the computers of unknown people.
Ultimately, that has devastated some people's lives, and I'm very proud of our team and also those victims for being able to stand up and stop him.